You know that feeling when you first started working from home and it felt like you'd cracked some secret code? Picture this. You roll out of bed at 8:55 a.m. for a 9 a.m. meeting. You're wearing pajama bottoms with a business shirt, and you're thinking, this is it. I've hacked the system. No commute, no gas money, no expensive lunches near the office. You probably calculated how much you'd save and felt genuinely excited about finally getting ahead financially. But then, honestly, flash forward 6 months. It's 6:30 p.m. on a Wednesday, and you're still sitting in the exact same chair you've been in for 9 hours straight. Your living room is your office, your bedroom is your break room, and you can't remember the last time you had a real conversation that wasn't through a screen. You're mentally exhausted, so you open DoorDash because the thought of cooking feels impossible. You scroll Amazon for something, anything, to make this setup feel less soul-crushing. And frankly, you feel more broke and more burned out than when you were driving to that cubicle. Here's what nobody talks about. Working from home isn't the financial savior we thought it was. It's actually a psychological money trap that's quietly draining your wealth, your career potential, and your sense of identity, all while you sit there in your sweatpants thinking you're winning. My name is Neo, and I spend way too much time thinking about money. Specifically, how our environments rewire our brains to make financial decisions we don't even realize we're making. If you're someone who wants to actually build wealth and career momentum instead of getting stuck in this comfortable but costly trap, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if it ends up giving you at least one uncomfortable "oh." That's exactly me moment. Most financial gurus will tell you that working from home is this incredible wealth building opportunity. They'll show you spreadsheets about commuting costs, maybe $4,000 a year saved on gas, parking, and those expensive office lunches. The conventional wisdom says it's simple math, same income, lower expenses, automatic profit. Most people think if I just work from home, I'll finally have breathing room. I'll save money, I'll be less stressed, and I'll have more time for the things that actually matter. But here's the thing they're completely missing, and it's huge. Humans aren't spreadsheets. We're emotional, psychological creatures who react to our environments in ways that have nothing to do with logic. When you remove the structure of going to an office, you don't just remove the commute. You remove the psychological boundaries that you use to keep your spending, your career growth, and your sense of professional identity in check. Here's where it gets interesting. The real story isn't whether remote work saves money on paper. The real story is what happens to your brain when your entire life exists in the same 800 square feet, and how does that rewiring affect your long-term wealth and career trajectory? Here's my core thesis in one sentence. Working from home creates a psychological boundary collapse that forces your brain to spend money manufacturing the dopamine, variety, and professional growth that your environment used to provide naturally. And the hidden cost of this trap is often between $300,000 and $1 million over a career. Why does this matter so psychologically? Because your brain is wired for variety, social connection, and clear role transitions. When you work from home, you're essentially living in a pressurized cabin with no release valve. Your work brain, your home brain, and your I need to feel something different brain are all sitting on the same couch, sharing the same credit card. Think of it like this. Imagine your life used to be like a house with clear rooms. Work happened in one room, rest in another, social interaction in another. Commuting was the hallway that helped you transition between spaces. When you work from home, it's like knocking down all the walls and turning your whole life into one big, undifferentiated space. Sounds nice, right? But now the stress from your Zoom call bleeds into your kitchen. The boredom from your afternoon slump makes you scroll Amazon. And you can't escape the feeling that you're always on but never really productive. That boundary collapse is the turning point. It's not just about where you work. It's about how your environment is quietly rewiring your spending habits, your career ambitions, and your sense of who you are as a professional. Let me break down what's actually happening in your brain, because this is where it gets fascinating and a little terrifying. When you don't have clear physical boundaries between work and life, your brain operates in what researchers call chronic low-level survival mode. You never truly turn off. Environmental psychology shows us that when boundaries dissolve, your brain struggles to switch roles effectively. You're not professional you or relaxed you, you're just always on, slightly anxious you. Here's what's actually happening chemically. Because you're in the same visual environment for 14 to 16 hours a day, your brain becomes habituated to the stimuli. It gets profoundly bored. To counteract this monotony, your brain starts craving dopamine hits, novelty, variety, stimulation. When you were at the office, novelty came naturally. A coworker walking by, a conversation in the hallway walking to get lunch. At home, the easiest novelty is on your screen, and it usually involves a checkout cart. Let me give you an example. It's 2 p.m., you hit a wall on a project. In an office, you might walk to the water cooler or chat with a colleague. At home, you open a new browser tab. You see an ad for a standing desk converter or a new coffee subscription, or that skincare routine everyone's talking about. You buy it, not because you need it, but because the act of purchasing provides a microdose of dopamine that breaks the monotony of your day. You're essentially paying a toll to feel something different in a stagnant environment. The Diderot effect states that obtaining a new possession often creates a spiral of consumption that leads you to acquire more new things. When your home becomes your office, you start scrutinizing your living space with the critical eye of a professional. Suddenly, your couch looks shabby in the background of Zoom calls. Your lighting looks terrible. Your bookshelf looks disorganized. So, you buy a ring light, then a better webcam. Then you reorganize your bookshelf, which makes you realize you need new books to fill it. Then, because the new setup makes your rug look old, you buy a new rug. You're not just living there anymore, you're curating a set. You're spending thousands of dollars trying to optimize a workspace that you're also supposed to relax in. You're trapped in an endless loop of upgrading your cage to make it feel less like a cage. When you work from home, the psychological separation between labor and leisure vanishes. By 6 p.m., you're suffering from what researchers call decision fatigue. You've made hundreds of micro decisions all day while sitting in that same chair. Your brain is fried, but your body feels lethargic because you haven't actually moved. The idea of chopping vegetables or doing laundry feels impossible, so you order DoorDash. Again, you hire a cleaning service because you can't stand to clean the mess you've been staring at all day. You subscribe to multiple streaming services because you need immediate passive escapism the second you close that laptop. You're outsourcing basic life functions because your work environment has consumed all your executive function. You're paying a premium for convenience because your setup is draining your will to do things yourself. This is the part most people completely miss, and it's probably the most expensive aspect of the work from home trap. Research consistently shows that remote workers are often passed over for promotions, raises, and high visibility projects compared to their in-office counterparts. It's not fair, but it's human psychology. If you're not physically present, you're not top of mind when opportunities arise. What behavioral economists call ambient awareness, your ability to pick up on organizational dynamics, political shifts, and emerging opportunities just by being physically present, completely disappears when you work remotely. In an office, you overhear conversations that give you insights into problems you could solve. You see who's meeting with whom. You notice when there's excitement about a new project. Your brain processes thousands of microsignals that inform your career strategy. At home, you get maybe 10% of that information. You're operating with a fraction of the social and political intelligence that your in-office colleagues have access to. According to Gallup's research, this proximity bias can result in remote workers earning 15-20% less over their careers compared to similar in-office employees. Think about that for a second. If you're making $70,000 a year, a 18% difference is about $12,600 annually. Over a 30-year career, that's nearly $380,000 in direct earnings alone. But when you factor in compound effects, lower 401k matching, smaller bonuses, fewer stock options, the real number often exceeds $500,000 for average earners and over $1 million for high earners. There's also the social isolation component, which creates what I call compensatory consumption. Humans are social animals. We need connection to regulate our emotions and validate our sense of progress. When you strip away the casual social interactions of an office environment, your brain interprets that isolation as stress. To soothe that stress, we often turn to spending. Have you ever noticed that you buy more random stuff when you're lonely? That's not a coincidence, it's a psychological mechanism. We buy things to fill the void of social connection. We purchase status signals even when no one sees them, just to remind ourselves that we're successful. We upgrade our tech, our coffee setup, our workspace aesthetic, trying to signal to ourselves that we're doing well, because we don't have colleagues or bosses providing that validation naturally. They think the solution is just be more disciplined or set better boundaries, and then they feel terrible when willpower alone doesn't work. You cannot willpower your way out of a dopamine deficit. If you're sitting in the same chair for 12 hours, wearing the same clothes, staring at the same wall, your brain will eventually rebel, and when it rebels, it will spend. Common mistake number 1, assuming that saving on commuting automatically translates to overall savings, so they never actually track where that extra money goes. It gets absorbed into delivery fees, subscription services, and impulse purchases without them even realizing it. Common mistake number 2, trying to solve a psychological problem with a logical solution. They focus on budgeting apps and expense tracking instead of addressing the underlying environmental and emotional triggers that are driving the spending in the first place. Common mistake number 3, over-optimizing the workspace too early. People drop $3,000 on a setup thinking it will solve their productivity and happiness issues. It doesn't. It just creates guilt when they're not productive and adds to the financial pressure they're trying to escape. This isn't about becoming someone who just works from home more efficiently. It's about becoming the type of person who owns their environment instead of being owned by it. The real reframe here is understanding that working from home is not a money-saving hack, it's a lifestyle design challenge. You're not just changing where you work, you're taking responsibility for creating the psychological structure, professional growth, and emotional regulation that an office environment used to provide automatically. Most people focus on the surface level. Should I get a better chair? Should I work from a coffee shop sometimes? But the real opportunity cost framework is this. Every day you optimize for comfort and convenience, you're choosing not to build the habits, relationships, and visibility that create long-term wealth and career options. Think of it this way. You can stay in your comfortable remote setup and accept that you're probably leaving hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table over your career. Or you can consciously design a system that gives you the flexibility of remote work while preserving the career capital and financial discipline that lead to real wealth building. Let's do a reality check with some compassionate math, because the numbers can be genuinely shocking. Let's say you used to spend $150 a month on gas and $200 on office lunches. That's $350 monthly you're saving. Sounds great, right? But here's how the convenience tax typically plays out. Food delivery just twice a week because you're drained. $25 per order, 8 orders plex, $200 a month. Extra streaming services for background noise and evening escape, $40 a month. Boredom purchases on Amazon averaging once a week, $35 $140 month. Higher utilities because you're home 24/7, $75 month. Workspace upgrades and gadgets averaged monthly, $50 month. Let's add it up. 200 plus 40 plus 140 plus 75 plus $50, $505. You saved $350 on commuting, but you spent $505 on coping mechanisms. You're actually losing $155 per month, or $1,860 per year, while thinking you're getting ahead financially. And remember, that doesn't include the career stagnation cost. If working remotely causes you to miss just one promotion that would have meant a 10% raise on a $70,000 salary, that's $7,000 annually. Over a decade, that's $70,000 in direct income, not counting the compounding effect on future raises. Suddenly, working from home isn't a savings plan, it's a wealth leak that could easily cost you six figures over a decade. But here's the empowering truth. This realization is actually your turning point. You're not doomed to bleed money and career momentum just because you work remotely. You just have to be more intentional than your autopilot brain. You have to consciously create the structure, boundaries, and growth opportunities that an office environment used to provide automatically. Imagine yourself 6 months from now. You've created a shutdown ritual at 5 p.m., you close the laptop, change clothes, literally changing your psychological costume, and take a walk. You cook dinner because you have the mental energy for it. You're not scrolling Amazon because you're not bored, you're engaged with your actual life and intentional about your career growth. You've stopped paying the convenience tax and started investing that money into actual freedom, emergency funds, skill development, networking, and long-term wealth building. You've figured out how to get the flexibility benefits of remote work without sacrificing your earning potential or financial discipline. This isn't about being perfect or turning into some productivity robot. It's about recognizing that your environment shapes your financial behavior, and if you don't consciously design that environment, it will design your bank account for you. You have more control than you think. The trap only works if you don't see it. Now you see it. The question is, what kind of person are you going to choose to be in this remote era? Someone who lets their environment happen to them, or someone who intentionally creates an environment that builds wealth, career capital, and genuine freedom? That choice, that identity shift, is the real work from home upgrade. And honestly, it's the difference between spending the next decade comfortable but stuck, or building the kind of life where you actually have options. You've got this.